Hexagram number 35. Progress. Brighten your bright virtue. The goal is to follow the path. The superior man brightens his bright virtue. The image of the sun rising over the earth indicates a time of progress. Such a time also brings into the open careless habits and practices that impede our block progress or that threaten our gains. Receiving the hexagram affirms that we are making progress even though it may elude our direct observation. Receiving it also reminds us of the basic principles on which progress is founded so that we can use the time of progress wisely. In particular, we should avoid sitting on our laurels and luxuriating in our achievements. Instead, it is a time to brighten our bright virtue. Progress is not the result of working for progress as a goal in itself, or toward comfortable and personally desirable objectives. Rather, it is a result of working on being consistent and true to one's principles, and of serving that which is higher. We cultivate an attitude of inner independence by focusing only on what is essential and correct. We fail to serve the good when, on achieving small progress, we forget about continuing humbly on our path and only indulge ourselves in the comfort of the moment. Receiving individual lines of the hexagram tells us to search for the specific attitudes that block progress or which threaten the progress already gained. Progress is blocked when we harbor viewpoints contrary to those of the sage. An enlightened ruler and an obedient servant. This line reminds us that progress is the consequence of serving the higher power obediently and of following the true and the good of selflessly. Forgive me. I'm going to read that entire section again. An enlightened ruler and an obedient servant. This line reminds us that progress is the consequence of serving the higher power obediently and of following the true and the good selflessly, without thought of reward. This means that we must take care not to luxuriate in having an influence or to use the affection and respect we have gained to indulge in desires. To truly help others and to solidify our gains, we must remain selfless. Thus, our work remains at the disposal of the ruler. Among the more subtly decadent attitudes is our tendency to be goal-orientated. For example, we focus on our goal to rescue or to reunite with someone. Then we fasten on any idea that seems to advance progress in some measurable, dramatic way. Once we become goal-orientated, we tend to intervene in affairs to make sure they are moving in the direction and with the momentum we desire. Or we intervene to prevent others from proceeding in what we perceive as the wrong direction. A goal-oriented person is like a particular type of horse known as a barn rat. The horse is so emotionally attached to the barn that when its rider points it in any other direction, it walks slower and slower. And when it is turned back towards the barn, it can hardly be restrained from running. When we are goal-orientated, we distrust the willingness or ability of the sage to use diverse circumstances creatively. Just as in a sailboat, one tacks along different angles to make progress against the wind, the creative uses all events and directions to make things work. We slip into goal-orientated habits whenever we allow our ego to engage in any kind of measuring to see how far we have progressed. This in turn initiates doubt and effort, by which we lose our center of gravity and the inner independence that brings about progress. Time is the vehicle of the creative power. Time alone heals. When we allow our ego to resist the time required to make progress because of its fears and doubts, we become locked in a vortex of the dark force, and we lose the power for good that accompanies an open mind. Dark force is potent and dynamic. When we see someone's attitude as hopelessly stuck, we darken their light and we lock them into a negative pattern of resistance. Similarly, we block ourselves when we doubt that we are able to do something. Doubt disables our ability to mobilize the unknown to help us and blinds us to our hidden abilities. We allow the cosmic outcome to emerge when we cease striving to shape the direction of change through conflict and leverage. When we trust that the correct way will show itself, we experience a dramatic change in the circumstances. This change is described in the 5th line of Splitting Apart in hexagram number 23 as a shoal of fishes. The moment we relate correctly, splitting apart ends. The entire school of fishes wheels and changes direction simultaneously. Changing line number 1. Progressing, but turned back. We have done what was right and necessary, but it seems there is no progress. We should not allow ourselves to be roused to anger, but simply continue to do what is right in a calm and cheerful manner. Thus, we will bite through the obstacles to achieving justice and equality in our relationships. Changing line number 2. Progressing, but in sorrow. It is better to endure suffering and loneliness than to be in someone's company if it means we compromise our principles, or if the time has not yet been fulfilled. Only when the fundamentals of human unity are correct can we find happiness. If others do not follow our way, we should allow them to go their way without trying to influence them. To accept humbly going on alone brings happiness because it is the correct thing to do. Changing line number 3. All are in accord. All are in accord. Remorse disappears. Although we are grieved at having had the strength and self-discipline to follow our path with total steadiness, forgive me. Again, this is changing line number 3. All are in accord. Remorse disappears. Although we are grieved at not having had the strength and the self-discipline to follow our path with total steadiness, this regret will be dispelled. In returning to our path, we are aided by all who love good. Changing line number 4. Progress, like a hamster. Wrong possessions refer to luxuries of attitude such as the following. When we expect or demand things of people, when we demand rewards for our good work, when we use the time of progress to amass power and influence for ourselves, when we indulge in comforts of the situation rather than doing what is right, when we justify our caprice by putting responsibility for it on the I Ching, when we look for ways to turn over to others our responsibility to decide things for ourselves. When we indulge feelings of anger or frustration, the ego is on hand in every situation, searching for glory, comfort, and for a reason to exist, or for a reason to abandon the path. We must constantly guard against its secretly amassing such possessions for itself. The dubious procedure mentioned generally refers to over-energetic behavior that might be called the white knight in shining armor syndrome. In close proximity to evil, our inferiors thinking that truth needs defending crystallize themselves into a knight in shining armor to do battle with the evil thing. Truth, however, needs no defense. It has the ultimate power and is bound to prevail in the end. Changing line number 5. Take not the loss to heart, although it seems that we have failed to take advantage of a good opportunity to influence the situation. We should not mind this. Although it is not obvious, progress has been made by keeping ourselves detached and free. If we view each moment as an opportunity to influence, we become too ambitious and goal-orientated. We should let the moments flow and keep alert. Then everything will happen as it should. Changing line number 6. Making progress with the horns. We cannot teach a person a lesson or bring him to his senses by being openly offensive, alienated, or hostile, all of which represents the over-energetic behavior mentioned in the 4th line. Aggression is justified only against our inferior self. This line also refers to the negative effects that come of harboring feelings of blame and anger instead of disengaging from them. This completes hexagram number 35.